Tonight, Senator Pamela Wallin is out of the Conservative caucus as CTV News blows the lid off her secret payback scheme. Her partial refund to taxpayers and the potential for police involvement.
The way the story is evolving with more serious allegations.
Plus the Senate report sanitized to protect Mike Duffy. We expose the unedited version. Good evening. It's been a day of so many developments in the Senate spending scandal. You may need a scorecard to keep track. One day after Mike Duffy resigned from the Conservative caucus, Senator Pamela Wallin has done the same. Wallin will join the growing ranks of independent senators alongside Duffy, Patrick Brazo, and Mac Harb. Auditors are now going back over all the expense claims submitted by Wallin and Duffy. We're also learning startling new details tonight about how Duffy got special treatment from the Tories. Once again, CTV's Ottawa Bureau Chief Robert Fife has the exclusive details.
After being informed of the preliminary findings of a forensic audit into Senator Pamela Wallin's travel expenses, the Prime Minister forced her out of the Conservative caucus. Sources say the Wallin audit raises serious questions involving hundreds of thousands of dollars. When CTV News first disclosed Wallin's suspicious spending in February, Harper defended the former broadcaster and consul general to New York.
I've looked at the numbers. Her travel costs are comparable to any parliamentarian traveling from that particular area of the country.
Insiders told CTV News Wallin repaid $25,000 before the forensic audit began. She has since returned about another $15,000. Sources say she will likely have to repay even more to taxpayers. Alarmed by what they discovered, auditors are now scrutinizing Wallin's travel back to 2009, when Harper named her to the unelected Senate. Once that audit is completed, a well-informed insider says it will be sent directly to the RCMP.
The way the story is evolving with more serious allegations one day after the next, I'm not sure we aren't approaching the point where some kind of a judicial inquiry should be looked at.
There's also new revelations about disgraced Senator Mike Duffy and how the government tried to protect him. CTV News has obtained a confidential report that shows how a Conservative-dominated Senate committee sanitized damning findings against Duffy. The original version was much tougher on the key issue of Duffy's primary residence. It said Duffy mostly used the cottage in PEI during the summer months. His pattern of air travel showed he lived in Ottawa. Moreover, he registered his Ottawa address for several official purposes. In sharp contrast to the final report Canadians heard, the original states the living allowance rules are very clear and unambiguous, and Duffy broke them. Finally, the report reveals Duffy's lawyers sought to have him exempted from a forensic audit. All of this was missing from the rewritten report tabled in the Senate.
You wonder, what is it that Mike Duffy, had that he could get the Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office to do a secret deal?
Sources say the whitewash was part of a backroom arrangement with Harper's Chief of Staff, Nigel Wright. Duffy would pretend he had voluntarily paid back the money when in fact Wright covered for him with a $90,000 check. Harper's office claims Wright gave Duffy the money as a gift out of compassion for an old friend.
We need to know what were the terms and conditions. What's the quid pro quo here? For $90,000, what was Senator Duffy expected to do?
With the Harper government engulfed in scandal, there's word the Conservatives may shut down Parliament in early June. Scott.
But Bob, will shutting down Parliament shut down all the many questions?
Scott, this is not going to go away until the Prime Minister answers the central question. Why did his Chief of Staff give Mike Duffy 90 grand? And was there a plot to subvert a Senate investigation? We know there was a legal letter of understanding between Nigel Wright and Mike Duffy. The opposition will want that letter released. I know the Prime Minister is meeting his caucus first thing Tuesday morning after the long weekend. Perhaps he'll give that letter to his MPs and then the country. Remember, Stephen Harper promised to run a clean, ethical, and transparent government.
CTV's Robert Fife once again on the Senate story. Yesterday, of course, Bob exclusively reported a senior source had told him then Conservative Senator Duffy tried to influence the CRTC decision about Sun Media's application for mandatory carriage. Today we learned former CRTC Commissioner Mark Petroni, a Harper appointee, has accepted a senior post with Sun Media. Petroni's 5-year term with the CRTC ended in March. As for Mike Duffy, not surprisingly, he has dropped out of sight. The senator is now secluded in the same home that he wrongfully claimed as his primary residence, a cottage in PEI. Islanders once welcomed the man they called Duff with open arms, but now that love affair is over. When CTV went calling on the senator today, he made a call of his own. CTV's Atlantic Bureau Chief Todd Battis explains.
With car in the driveway, the residents of this tidy Cavendish cottage are home. Clearly, though, they are not receiving visitors. Any debate of who lives here is settled by the sign in the yard. Moments after we walk away, a visitor of another sort, this at the request of Senator Duffy. The RCMP was called to have us removed. It is, after all, as the officer reminds us, private property. Our license plate and names are checked. After a few minutes wait,
there's your ID back. The only thing I'll say, guys, is the complaint was made that you were on the property, and the property owner doesn't want you on his property. So the only thing I'll ask is if you just don't return within this property.
Senator Duffy remains holed up in his cottage in this resort community built to host vacationers. Around here in spring, conversation centers on farming and fishing. This season, though, they've both been overshadowed by Mike Duffy's very public battles.
There are people here who pity Senator Duffy. Of course, others are angry with him. Still, many more feel all of this could have been avoided if he wasn't chosen to be a senator from Prince Edward Island to begin with.
Very shady, eh? Like, it makes the Islanders look bad, to tell the truth.
If someone gives you $90,000 to pay off something's going on. Don't you think so?
Well, it shouldn't be in the Senate anymore. That's what I'd say.
On Prince Edward Island's North Shore, there are plenty of inviting attractions tourists shouldn't miss. A visit to number 10 Friendly Lane is not among them. Todd Battis, CTV News, Cavendish, PEI.
Now, Mike Duffy and Pamela Wallin, of course, are not the only members of the upper chamber under scrutiny. On our website, we have an itemized list of travel costs for all senators during the last federal election campaign. Just go to ctvnews.ca.